The autumn dusk had long spread its cool shadow fingers over the ancient town of Valebrook. The streets, lined with time-worn cobblestones and gnarled oak trees, whispered secrets to the gentle night breeze. In this uncanny hour, the town wore its dual nature like a silken shroud-on moment, exuding a serene, meditative beauty, the next hinting at the latent mysteries that lurked beneath its placid surface. It was said that every brick, every twisted alleyway held a story, a delicate balance of terror and solace that beckoned the brave and the weary alike to come and listen. A narrow lane bordered by ivy-clad walls led to the modest residence of Aveline, a keeper of forgotten lore and a connoisseur of nocturnal tales. Aveline's home, built from ancient stone and adorned with stained glass windows depicting ethereal scenes, was a haven for those who sought refuge in the nuanced realms of recollection and wonder. Within its quiet chambers, shelves overflowed with leather-bound volumes chronicling accounts of phantom encounters and uncanny happiness stories not meant to be shrieked in terror, but rather to be savored like an exquisite tea brewed from rare autumn leaves. Each tale was a paradox, unsettling in its implication, yet comforting in its ritual, a blend of frayed memory and gentle cadence. On one particular evening, as the silver orb of the moon ascended above the crooked spires of Valebrook, Aveline prepared for her customary night of storytelling. With measured movements, she lit a cluster of lavender candles, their soft flickering merging with the subdued luminescence of the night. The gentle aroma mingled with the scent of rain-damp earth fragrance that carried hints of nostalgia and a subtle promise of revelations. Tonight's story was to be unlike any before, unfolding as a single, continuous chronicle that wove together the enigmatic tapestry of the past with the tender pulse of the present. The tale began in a forgotten corner of the nearby moorland, where a desolate farmhouse sat at the edge of an ever-whispering forest. In this remote haven, time seemed to pause, paying homage to the elusive dance between dreams and the stark reality of twilight. The farmhouse, though weathered and abandoned by most, was not empty. In the silent corridors and behind closed windows, one could almost sense the lingering presence of old soul spirits who had once shared laughter and lamplight, now bound to the echoes of their former lives. It was in the stillness of these spaces that a curious phenomenon unfolded every night. The gentle intermingling of ghostly murmurs and the soft cadence of wind chimes that resonated as if playing a forgotten lullaby. On an unusually crisp night, much like this one, a solitary figure emerged from the forest edge, a wanderer, draped in an air of quiet determination and sorrowful wonder. His name was Edwin, a traveler whose heart carried the weight of lost memories, yet beat with an insatiable longing for solace. With each careful step along the pebbled path, he recounted silent prayers to the indifferent stars, seeking both redemption and a trace of connection with those who had gone before him. The farmhouse called to him like a whispered secret, its presence felt as a subtle vibration in the twilight air. Here, it was believed, the veil between past and present grew thinner, and one might glimpse the outlines of stories deferred. Edwin's journey into the heart of the farmhouse was an act of gentle bravery. The door, slightly ajar as though inviting him to step into a forgotten waltz of echoes, creaked softly under his touch. Inside, the corridors were bathed in a mellow glow, punctuated by the interplay of flickering candlelight and silvered moonbeams that seeped through cracked windows. The ambience was a surreal confluence of restful melancholy and quiet terror. In one room, a grand piano stood untouched by time. Its ivory keys, now muted in their silence, resonated faintly with memories of old melodies, as if recalling the touch of hands that once played tunes of hope and heartache. There was a delicious tension here, a blend of the macabre with an almost tender yearning to remember. In the largest chamber of the house, a dusty mirror hung on the far wall. Its surface was not simply reflective, but seemed to hold within it a ripple of alternate realities. Edwin, feeling both dread and fascination, approached it with reverence. In that reflective portal, he saw not only his own tired eyes but also fleeting glimpses of a vibrant past shadows of joyous gatherings, whispered secrets beneath stars, and the playful dance of laughter and tears. The mirror then became a metaphor for the relentless passage of time. both a revealer of long-buried truths and a reminder of the serene beauty nestled within decay. Edwin's heart softened as he embraced the comforting sorrow of existence, a cathartic recognition that every end bore the seed of a tender beginning. The farmhouse, with all its spectral inhabitants and fragile history, was, at its essence, a repository of memories waiting patiently to be recalled. As Edwin wandered through rooms filled with the patina of abandonment, the air resonated with stories of love, loss, and quiet resilience. In a modest parlor hung with faded portraits, he imagined the gentle smiles of those whose lives had revolved around simple joys and modest dreams. Their echoes entwined with the silken strains of an old lullaby that drifted from an unseen music box, carrying with it both a promise of reassurance and the bittersweet taste of farewell. With each step, Edwin felt himself healed by the serene yet haunting recollections that seemed to flow from the very walls around him. Beyond the farmhouse, the forest itself whispered further secrets. Its tall, ancient trees formed a natural cathedral, their branches interlacing high above to create an enchanting vault of leaves. In this nocturnal sanctuary, the interplay of shadows and soft light created a delicate, almost spiritual environment. Tiny motes of luminescent fireflies, like wandering souls, danced lazily in the cool air. Their glowing lights were like beacons for lost wanderers and solitary hearts, marking paths toward realms both mystical and familiar. It was here, amid the rustle of leaves and the cadence of nocturnal critters, that Edwin's mind began to meld the harshness of mortality with the inherent grace of the natural world. Each rustle became an auditory lull, soothing the restless passages of his past and transforming them into gentle admonitions of hope. As the night deepened, the farmhouse and forest merged seamlessly in Edwin's recollection. The boundary between the tangible and the ethereal dissolved, leaving him with a singular, all-encompassing clarity. The harmony of the scene was both eerie and inviting. There was fear in the unknown, yet a profound peace in the realization that each soul, no matter how weary, had its quiet sanctuary in the cosmos. In that singular moment, Edwin understood that every spectral whisper and every distant memory was an invitation to bask in the reflective stillness that life, in its gentle impermanence, so generously offered. The terror of the abandoned spaces was balanced perfectly by a calm that came from the recognition of shared experiences across the veils of time. In the chill of pre-dawn, as the horizon blushed with the first soft hints of light, Edwin lingered at the threshold of the farmhouse. He carried with him not the heaviness of fear, but a lightness born of acceptance and understanding that the eerie chronicles of the past were not curses, but gentle reminders of the beauty inherent in every fleeting moment. With a heart both heavy and illuminated, he stepped back into the awakening world of Valebrook, where the first rays of the sun hinted at renewal and quiet transcendence. The farmhouse faded behind him into the mists of memory, its story continuing on in the hearts of those who knew that even in the depths of darkness, there lay an unspoken promise of calm, of a respite from the endless march of time. As morning blossomed across the quiet streets, the legend of the farmhouse and the spectral echoes it harbored became interwoven with the daily pulse of the Tona, soft, lingering lullaby reminding every passerby that beauty and fear were intertwined like the vines on an ancient wall. Aveline, having completed her tale that evening, closed her worn journal with a smile that encompassed both sadness and hope. In her gentle eyes, the line between nightmare and dream was blurred, and she knew that every whispered secret in the dark offered a strange, calming reassurance to those brave enough to truly listen. The narrative of Valebrook was one of intricate balance, where every ghostly note resonated in harmony with the silent, comforting melody of existence. There was no need for grand declarations or the certainty of a predetermined fate, only the quiet understanding that every droplet, every ripple in the darkness was an integral note in the endless symphony of existence. In that peaceful surrender, she knew that each rainy night was not merely a prelude to sleep, but an invitation to explore the boundless landscapes of the heart and mind a journey, where every story was both ancient and ever new, waiting to be discovered in the fragile stillness between breaths. And so, with the gentle persistence of the rain as her guide and the soft glow of the breaking dawn beckoning in the distance, Mara slipped into a serene, dream-woven slumbera, sleep as deep and intricate as the night itself. In that final tender moment before the world reawakened, the rain's ceaseless murmur became a promise that every night, no matter how dark or stormy, held within its folds the seeds of tomorrow's hope, the whispers of untold stories, and the everlasting magic of being alive. In the town of Evershadea, place where the wind whispered lullabies to crooked, time-worn streets, the night held a curious duality, at times menacing in its secrets, at others profoundly soothing like the gentle murmur of distant water. The town's residents, aged in spirit as much as in years, always said that Evershade had learned the art of balancing dread with a tender, silent lullaby. It was as if every shadow was cast with intent. Every creak of an old building was a reminder of stories past, and every cool breeze carried with it both the chill of mystery and the caress of forgotten memories. Eleanor, a solitary wanderer with an inquisitive soul, arrived one autumn evening when the leaves burned with hues of auburn and gold. Drawn by a half-remembered dream, she found herself standing before the ornate iron gates of Blackwood menorah relic from another age, cloaked in ivy and veiled in a soft mist that blurred the line between tangible reality and something altogether more surreal. Although the manor's reputation for harboring specters and murmurs of bygone tragedies swirled around in hushed conversations, there was an undeniable allure in its silent, dignified decay that promised solace for the troubled heart and stimulus for a restless mind. Eleanor crossed the threshold into an expansive foyer. Here, the light struggled to free itself from ancient curtains, and each footstep resonated like a gentle percussion echoing in the corridors of a forgotten cathedral. The silence was punctuated by the occasional rustle of paper, the clink of an unseen chain, or the soft thud of a door settling into its place. Yet rather than instilling terror, these sounds murmured secrets of comfort, the suggestion that the manor was but a repository for souls whose stories were waiting to be remembered rather than simply feared. In the manor's solitude, each room unfolded like a carefully penned poem. In one chamber, dust-laden furniture spoke of elegant dinners long past. A grand piano rested in the corner, its ivory keys dulled by neglect, yet promising melodies that, if coaxed, could evoke gentle reminiscence of laughter and sorrow in equal measure. As dusk deepened, Eleanor discovered a hidden library where shadows pooled between towering shelves. Here, amidst brittle pages and faded ink, lay letters and diaries chronicling lives spent in the quiet pursuit of solace amid mystery. Every narrative was saturated with the bittersweet symphony of loss and Hope's quiet reminder that even in the throes of fear, there was a fragile beauty in letting the unknown cradle the spirit. From the library, the sound of a distant lullaby eventually led her to a winding staircase that spiraled upward. Each creaking step echoed gently as though the very air was imbued with the memory of whispered secrets shared in the dark. At the top, on a narrow landing, Eleanor paused to take in the view through a single large window. Beyond the glass, the night was a vast canvas adorned with shimmering stars, while below, the manicured gardens lay tranquil, almost reverent in their design. There was something oddly poetic about the juxtaposition, the eerie stillness of the manor blending seamlessly with the soft, natural cadence of the outdoors. It was in this quiet reverie that the first true stirrings of a gentle presence made itself known. Not a ghost in the customary sense of malice or terror, but a benign entity that seemed to have long lingered in the manor's fading light. At first, it was the soft rustling of a silk scarf, a spectral caress that cooled her skin before vanishing like a half-remembered dream. Then came the intermittent tapping of an unseen hand on the pane of the window, a rhythmic, almost musical counterpoint to the ambient hush of night. As Eleanor's eyes adjusted to the gloom, she saw not terror but rather a luminous figure, half-formed and elusive as a wisp of smoke. It moved gracefully through the space, a gentle guardian of memories who had chosen to remain in the mansion out of a deep, silent affection for the comfort found only in solitude and reminiscence. The spectral being did not speak, but its presence was altogether reassuring. Eleanor, with her tender heart, felt as if the apparition was there to guide her through the labyrinth of her own inner reflections. In the echo of the manor, time seemed to waver. Hours passed in a fluid continuum as she wandered through corridors that offered both the thrill of the unknown and the soft hush of an undisturbed sanctum. The presence, like an old friend, led her not towards harrowing encounters, but towards experiences that soothed her inner turmoil path, paved with contemplative silence, punctuated by the poetic rhythm of life, death, and renewal. On a moonlit night, beneath a canopy embroidered with stars, Eleanor found herself in the manor's grand conservatory. The glass ceiling above allowed luminescent beams to dance upon the overgrown foliage, casting an ethereal glow that rendered the garden within an enchanted paradise. Here, she encountered the whisper of a piano chord in the distanza sound that resonated with the duality of the manor, merging the pain of loss with the pure, vibrant pulse of life. The notes were melancholic yet soothing, each one a delicate thread binding the realms of the living and the departed. As she listened, time appeared to slow, and the eerie tension that usually haunted such melodies transformed into a profound sense of peace a moment, where fear was but a passing shadow, and solace was the true master of the night. In the days that followed, Eleanor began to unravel the tapestry of Blackwood Manor's history, piece by piece, like a delicate embroidery of human experience. She discovered that the spectral guardian was once a devoted caretaker of the Estadia person whose life had been spent not only in service of the manor's physical upkeep, but in caring for the souls whose stories permeated every brick, every beam. In the faded records of the manor's logbooks and in the crumbling diary pages she collected, there were echoes of a compassion that transcended time. The guardian had witnessed laughter amid sorrow, calm amid chaos, and beauty amid a landscape scarred by loss. There was no grim malevolence in these pages, only a profound yearning to preserve that gentle interplay between fear and comfort, tragedy and tender reassurance. As days melted into nights and nights into days, Eleanor found solace in embracing the complexity of her own emotions. In the quiet corners of the manor, by the flickering light of a solitary candle, she allowed herself to confront memories both sweet and sorrowful. One evening, seated by a large, arched window in the drawing room, she reflected on the nature of fear, a sensation so often portrayed as catastrophic and all-consuming, yet here in Evershade, rendered soft and contemplative. The manor itself was like an old friend who had learned to share its shadows without despair, offering instead a space for introspection and gentle release. There were moments when the spectral guardian would appear at the edge of her vision, an almost imperceptible outline in the mirror, or a fleeting impression in the reflection of rain-soaked glass. Though never intrusive, its intermittent presence served as a reminder that no one is ever truly alone, even in the quiet solitude of one's own mind. Its gestures were like a quiet benediction, a silent assurance that every tear, every trembling heartbeat, was part of the larger mosaic of human existence. It was as if the manor itself, with all its eerie remnants and quiet mysteries, was a living metaphor for the inner world, a place where the interplay of darkness and light created a tapestry rich with meaning. The mansion's corridors, with their ever-shifting interplay of shadow and substance, became a canvas for Eleanor's meditations on the beauty of impermanence. As the seasons advanced and the once vivid autumnal hues softened into the dim palette of winter, she saw in every fallen leaf a whisper of the past, and in every gust of icy wind a promise of eventual renewal. In the quiet hours of early morning, when the chill of dawn mingled with the residue of a long, reflective night, Eleanor would sit by a frosted window and pen her observations. Her journal became a repository for the myriad reflections of a soul at once sensitive to the bittersweet pangs of memory and attuned to the quiet grandeur of the present moment. One particular night, as a dense fog rolled over Evershade like a thick shroud, Eleanor was drawn once more to the manor's secret gardenia hidden courtyard at the rear of the estate, known only to those who truly listened to the heartbeat of the ancient walls. The garden was a symphony of muted colors and lingering fragrances, each flower and stone conspiring to evoke feelings of serene melancholy. Wandering among the overgrown paths, she felt the presence of the guardian more strongly than ever before. In the fog's embrace, The apparition appeared not as a single figure, but as an array of gentle luminescence that shimmered among the blossoms. Its silent dance spoke of eternal cycles, the turning of seasons, the recurring beat of life and death, and in that dance, Eleanor recognized the true essence of beauty, the acceptance of the impermanence of all things. In that moment, as the spectral lights waltzed delicately through the garden, the veil between the tangible and the ethereal seemed to dissolve. The mundane worries of the world receded, replaced by the raw, unfiltered poetry of existence. Every breath was a mingling of fear and comfort, every heartbeat a reminder that beauty could emerge from even the darkest corners. The experience was neither terrifying nor wholly soothing. It was, rather, an embrace of contradiction, the simultaneous awareness that life was transient and yet, in its transience, infinitely precious. As midnight approached, the cool tendrils of fog gave way to a radiant clarity, and the spectral guardian, with its gentle farewell, receded into the tapestry of the night. Eleanor, heart brimming with quiet wonder, understood that the mansion, with all its whispers and memories, had shared with her a secret too profound for mere words. It had shown her that to be truly alive was to accept the beautiful interplay of light and shadow, to allow oneself the vulnerability to be both comforted and unsettled by the mysteries of one's own soul. In the days that followed, Blackwood Manor remained a quiet haven for those who sought an escape not from the unknown, but into its soft, enfolding embrace. Eleanor's notebooks filled with flowing script and delicate sketches became cherished relics, a record of nights when fear was gentle and the unknown was as inviting as an old friend. Visitors, drawn by the strange allure of the manor, soon discovered that within its ancient walls lay a sanctuary of introspection where every haunted corner held the promise of healing if only one was willing to listen deeply. As spring began to weave its tendrils through the land, melting the lingering chill of winter into hopeful whispers of rebirth, Eleanor found herself forever transformed. The lessons gleaned from nights among shadows and soft luminescence would forever echo in her heart, teaching her that within every ghost and every tremor of fear lay the tender pulse of life and invitation to embrace all that was transient, mysterious, and ultimately exquisitely alive. And so, in the lingering twilight of Evershade, where night and memory entwined like inseparable companions, the story of Blackwood Manor endured. It was not merely a chronicle of spectral presences or eerie echoes. It was a testament to the inherent beauty found in the interplay of fear and solace, darkness and light. For those who dared to step into its serene embrace, the manor offered not terror, but a quiet reminder that even the most haunting passages of our lives can lead us ultimately to a deeper, more resonant peace. In the soft murmur of falling dusk and the subdued cheer of a new dawn, Blackwood Manor stood as a monument to this delicate truth, that in every whispered secret of the night there lies a beauty that, if embraced, can transform our darkest dreams into a lullaby for the soul. And so, as the mysterious legacy of Evershade continued to be written one gentle footstep at a time, its stories promised always to beckon lost souls toward the tender, unspoken relief that comes only from accepting the endless dance of fear and hope. The ancient clock tower tolled at twilight, its resonant chime melding with the hush of the settling evening. In the small, secluded town of Margrave Hollow, nightfall did not herald the onset of terror so much as the arrival of a peculiar peace. It was in this enigmatic hour that the old estate on the outskirts of town, long abandoned by those who once called it home, was bathed in the gentle glow of a silver moon. Ivy crept along crumbling stone walls, and through the ivy-choked archways, one could faintly perceive the specters of memories past. Evelyn Hastings arrived at the estate with little fanfare, drawn by an inexplicable pull that defied her better judgment. The old manor, known amongst locals as the House of Quiet Whispers, had become a myth, a whispered legend passed along in hushed tones around crackling fireplaces. Evelyn, a writer of slow, deliberate prose who longed for solitude and inspiration, felt that this place could provide the cocoon in which her next story might unfold. Stepping through the great oak doors, she sensed the history of the building enfold her like a comforting blanket, albeit one woven with threads of subtle apprehension. In the grand foyer, the faded frescoes on the ceiling told stories of forgotten grandeur and lost love. The marbled floors, polished by decades of careful footfall, retained the warm hues of a past era. As Evelyn wandered the echoing halls, the sensation of being silently observed lingered like the soft rustle of pages turned by unseen hands. Every room held hints of gentle mysteries, delicate clink of a porcelain teacup, an abandoned journal with pages yellowed by time, a family portrait whose eyes seemed to follow her every move. Though the mansion's decay suggested despair, there was an underlying current of unspoken kindness in its melancholic beauty. The first night was spent in a modest guest chamber, its heavy drapes drawn against the night. Yet even as she prepared for sleep, the gentle susurration of the wind outside was reminiscent of a lullaby. The melody was at once eerie and soothing, a strange duality that instantly became the leitmotif for all that was to come. As Evelyn drifted off, her thoughts mingled with dreams, visions of moonlit gardens, long corridors with whispering walls, and figures in antiquated garb offering quiet smiles before dissolving into starlight. Morning arrived in a haze of soft light that seeped through lace-curtained windows. Breakfast, prepared by a kindly old housekeeper who seemed to know more than she said, was a humble repast of herbal tea and delicate pastries. The housekeeper, Mrs. Alder, explained in a calm, almost ritualistic tone that the mansion had its rhythms, its own pacing of sorrow and solace that created a safe harbor for lost souls. Not all that haunts these halls comes with malice, she had said gently. Some remain to guard the memories of love and life once lived, and to offer a gentle kind of healing to those who seek it. Inspired by this, Evelyn took her pen to paper. By day she roamed the labyrinthine corridors of the estate. By night she dwelled in the half-light of fevered dreams. In one corridor she found a library so vast that the air itself seemed imbued with secrets. Shelves bowed under the weight of leather-bound volumes and manuscripts that chronicled lives long past. In the quiet hush of that space, she uncovered letters of farewell, recipes for forgotten feasts, and journals that recounted moments of both despair and quiet triumph. Each word resonated with a dual presence of the eerie and the soothing testament to the notion that even sorrow might produce beauty when given time to settle like dust in a sunbeam. A particularly compelling discovery was a diary belonging to a young woman named Lillian. The diary spoke of midnight gardens where wild roses bloomed against all odds, of secret meetings beneath ancient trees, and of whispered promises that spanned beyond time. Lillian's prose was hypnotic, a blend of bittersweet lamentations and a serene acceptance of life's impermanence. Evelyn felt Lillian's spirit guiding her hand as she transcribed the diary's passages into her own collection of stories. With every written word, it was as though the past and present converged, creating a tapestry of intertwined lives that defied simple categorization into horror or comfort. The heart of the estate was the overgrown garden, a place where nature had reclaimed the constructed remnants of man's ambitions. Here, the soft murmur of running water from a long-dried fountain mixed with the distant song of unseen birds. Ivy and moss knotted together to form intricate patterns over mossy stone benches and a once grand, but now rusted, wrought iron gate. It was here that Evelyn experienced the most profound transformation. Wandering through the narrow gravel paths, she discovered a secluded nook where the vibrancy of wildflowers sparkled in the dappled sunlight, a microcosm of life thriving in the shadows of decay. She sat there for what seemed an eternity, listening to the cadence of nature's lullaby, and allowed herself to be enveloped by the memory of every sorrow, every joy, and every quiet consolation the estate had to offer. Even as days bled together in a continuous dreamscape, the mansion revealed its more enigmatic spectacles during the twilight hours. Soft, glowing orbs appeared, sometimes hovering near the ancient staircase, at other times dancing among the hanging vines in the conservatory. These were not malevolent apparitions. Rather, they seemed to be gentle custodians, guiding guests to the hidden wonders of the estate. One evening, while strolling near the derelict greenhouse, Evelyn noticed one orb larger than the others. It pulsed with an inner light and beckoned her forward. With each cautious step, her heart pounded like a distant drum, echoing both trepidation and an inexplicable exhilaration. As she approached, the orb coalesced into a more defined shape of figure, clad in the soft glow of moonlight, whose eyes mirrored the gentle melancholy of ages past. In that fleeting moment, Evelyn felt as though the boundaries between her own existence and the spectral tapestry of the house had blurred, merging into an understanding that beauty and fear often reside in the same fragile vessel. The evenings progressed with an almost otherworldly rhythm, a gentle crescendo of memories and revelations softly played out as if on a hidden stage. The estate, with its every whisper and every shadow, told a story not of monstrous terrors, but of tender regrets and quiet hope. There were moments when the very walls seemed to breathe softly, exhaling the sorrows of yesteryears and inhaling the promise of a new beginning. In one such moment, while seated in the parlor by a grand fireplace that had long ceased to blaze, Evelyn felt the persistent, calming presence of those who had once inhabited the space. Their collective memories wove around her like a shawl layers of nostalgia, regret, and an almost palpable sense of gratitude that life, despite its many transgressions, could be remembered with warmth. Throughout her stay, Evelyn encountered both apparent anomalies and small miracles. A painting in the dining hall, once barred from public display due to its uncanny realism, seemed to change with the light portraits that gazed directly at passers-by, their expressions alternating between wistfulness and playful mischief. A music box, discovered in a forgotten corner of the attic, played a tune so tender it could unspool the threads of one's most guarded memories. Each of these moments, seemingly insignificant on their own, gradually revealed themselves to be the delicate components of a grander designer narrative wherein the spectral and the serene coalesced into a single, mesmerizing melody. In the quiet interlude between the known and the unknowable, Evelyn found herself drawn increasingly to the estate's secrets. An attic filled with faded costumes and relics of theatrical performances invoked a sense of wonder, and she would spend hours sifting through bits of paper and fabric that captured the flamboyant yet ephemeral spirit of a bygone era. In a dusty trunk, she uncovered a collection of handwritten poems that spoke of love lost to the relentless march of time and of passions that burned quietly beneath the surface of daily existence. Each verse, delicate and haunting, whispered to her of the intricate beauty of transient moments of beauty so profound that it hovered at the fringes of the supernatural. The boundary between her own consciousness and the tales of the estate became increasingly permeable. Sometimes she would close her eyes and imagine that she was not alone in her solitude. In the rustle of leaves outside her window, in the murmur of distant voices that echoed down the corridors, she detected a chorus of silent companions. These companions were not dark phantoms of terror, but kindred spirits who had come to rest in the sanctuary of the old menorah place where sorrow and hope entwined in a slow, eternal dance. They spoke to her in language not of words but of feelings, a shared understanding that transcended time and the confines of mortal existence. One particularly stormy night, when the skies opened up in a torrent of rain and the wind carried the lament of 1,000 bygone souls, the estate came alive in a way that left no doubt of its spectral benevolence. The tempest outside was matched by an inner tempest that shook the very foundations of Evelyn's beliefs. As thunder rumbled in the distance, she found herself standing in a long, candlelit corridor where the portraits of former residents seemed to weep with empathy. The flickering lights of the candles cast playful shadows against the walls, and for a long, surreal minute, she felt that the house itself was breathing and pulsating with life. It was as if the mansion had decided to lay bare all of its secrets of panorama of love, despair, redemption, and an exquisite, unspoken promise of renewal. In that charged moment, Evelyn understood the true nature of the strange harmony that had enveloped her during her stay. The equilibrium between the eerie and the placid was not a contradiction, but an invitation. It was a call to embrace the entirety of existence, the passions and the losses, the brightness and the gloom with equal parts tenderness. The estate, with its manifold ghosts and relics, invited not just fear or sorrow, but also a deep and revitalizing acceptance, realization that in every shadow There is a hidden light waiting to be discovered. As the tempest abated and the first hints of dawn began to dispel the night's lingering gloom, Evelyn gathered her thoughts. The experiences of the past several days had sculpted within her a nuanced understanding of the world, a perspective that saw beauty even in the melancholic strains of an old song or the soft murmur of ancient walls. With the rising sun came a promise, as clear as the dew on the garden's wild blossoms, that every ending carried within it the seeds of a gentle beginning. Every shudder of fear was interlaced with a serene, unspoken grace. In the aftermath of her profound journey through the labyrinthine corridors of memory and mystery, Evelyn resolved to capture these delicate truths in her writing. The story that would emerge was not one of simple horror or pure tranquility, but a rich tapestry of experiences that celebrated the coexistence of light and shadow, of passion and quiet introspection. The words that now filled her journal were imbued with a soulful cadence, a rhythmic reassurance that even in the midst of life's darkest nights, there exists a gentle lullaby hymn to the resilience of the human spirit. By the time Evelyn stepped out of the estate, the early morning sun had started to gild the horizon. The mansion, with all its whispered secrets and tender apparitions, seemed to bid her farewell in a manner that was both solemn and affectionate. As she drove away along the winding country road, she carried with her not only the memory of spectral figures and ghostly harmonies, but also the understanding that true beauty often resides in the spaces where fear and solace meet. In that quiet balance, the darkest moments transformed into gentle reminders of life's inherent capacity to heal and to inspire. The legacy of the House of Quiet Whispers became, in Evelyn's words, a metaphor for the complexities of existencia, a place where every tear and every laugh, every ghostly murmur and every tender hush was an integral part of an ever-unfolding narrative. And as she penned the final lines of her manuscript, she found herself smiling softly at the notion that, in the end, the stories we tell are not merely chronicles of terror or comfort, but are, in their truest form, the lullabies of our soul sand eternal reminder that every shadow, no matter how haunting, has within it a quiet and enduring light. In the days that followed, as readers discovered her work and embraced the bittersweet cadence of her story, Evelyn's narrative became a sanctuary for those seeking the delicate interplay of fear and warmth, a place where one could find solace in the eerie beauty of remembered dreams and in the gentle, unyielding promise that even the most chilling nights eventually give way to the soft glow of a new dawn. In the heart of a forgotten valley, beneath a twilight sky that always seemed suspended between dusk and dawn, lay an ancient hamlet named Thistledown. This small village was marked by winding, cobblestone alleys and moss-covered stone walls, each corner and crevice steeped in the lore of centuries past. The people of Thistledown lived by stories tales passed down in hushed whispers around low-burning fireplaces, where the flickering flame revealed faces etched with both hope and sorrow. There was an unspoken understanding among the villagers that every whisper of wind, every creak in the ancient wooden door, carried the promise of a legend yet to be fully told. Yet, unlike the typical lore of unrelenting terror, these narratives bore a paradoxical quality, a delicate interplay between spine-tingling apprehension and the gentle comfort found in confronting the mysteries of existence. The story of the strangers in the shadows was perhaps the most fabled of all, a chronicle of apparitions and elusive figures seen dancing in the silver light of the full moon along the edge of the weeping forest. Many an autumn evening, as scarlet leaves twirled softly to the ground and the scent of damp earth filled the air, a solitary figure would stroll the village outskirts. This lone wanderer was known simply as Rowana, quiet soul with eyes that reflected hidden depths and emotions forged in the crucible of mystery. Rowan had long since abandoned the need for loud words, preferring instead the silent dialogue of glances and the unspoken communion of shared solitude. Night after night, he would traverse the borderlands, searching for that indefinable meeting between dread and respite, hoping that the murmurs of the forest might impart a secret that would satiate his yearning for both understanding and escape. One night, When the moon hung low and swollen as a silver coin in an endless sky, Rowan discovered a path he had never seen before. The narrow, winding trail was edged with wild roses that glowed under the delicate caress of moonlight, their petals soft as whispers and perfumed with an almost hypnotic aroma. The path beckoned him further than any he had followed before into the depths of the woods where the ordinary world seemed to vanish. As he ventured inward, each step was accompanied by a chorus of rustling leaves and the distant sound of water dancing over ancient stones. A subtle tension held the air, tempered by a quiet reassurance, as if every element of nature were conspiring to share a secret that bridged the gap between terror and tranquility. Deep in the forest, where time appeared to stretch like an endless reverie, Rowan came upon a clearing ringed by towering trees whose gnarled limbs formed a natural cathedral. In the center of the clearing stood a weathered stone pedestal, covered in moss and delicate, curling ivy. Upon it rested a leather-bound journal, its cover etched with mysterious symbols that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. There was no sound as he knelt to pick it up. The stillness was as profound as a held breath before an inevitable exhale. The journal, he soon realized, was not merely an object, but a repository of memories, a silent keeper of stories lost to time. As Rowan leafed through the fragile pages, the language of the past unfurled before him in looping, elegant calligraphy. Each entry was a meditation on the balance of fear and repose, recounting encounters with apparitions that were less like terrors than gentle reminders of life's impermanence. There were descriptions of ghostly figures whose eyes shone with melancholy wisdom, spectral visitors who brought no harm but instead lent an eerie beauty to the moonlit night. One entry told of a woman named Eleanor, whose translucent form was seen dancing gracefully amongst the trees. Her laugh, like a soft chime, echoed faintly in the crisp air as she wove between the shadow-sure presence both an elegy for what had been lost and a benediction for those who dared to dream in the face of darkness. Rowan's heart swelled with a peculiar blend of sorrow and solace. Reading each written memory, he felt as though he was no longer a solitary wanderer, but part of something greater, a continuum of souls who had dared to navigate the fine line between terror and comfort. The journal spoke of the healing potential of fear, of the strength found in confronting the unknown. Within the delicate script, Rowan discovered that every frightened gasp and every whispered prayer had paved the way for introspection, allowing people to connect with their innermost selves. There existed a certain peace in recognizing that what frightened them was not solely an external force, but a part of the natural rhythm of life, a cycle of shadow and light. That night, under the watchful gaze of the ancient trees, Rowan camped near the clearing, cradling the journal as if it were a sacred relic. He spent hours reading by the gentle glow of a single lantern, relishing the intimacy of each word that bridged the chasm between past and present. In the quiet solitude of the woods, he came to see that the fear written within those pages was not something to shun or hide from. It was an invitation to a deeper understanding of oneself. With every page turned, he discovered not only ghostly echoes of lives gone by, but also a reflection of his own inner landscape, rife with memories of long-forgotten dreams and unfulfilled desires. As the night deepened, the boundaries between sleep and wakefulness began to blur. In dreams, Rowan encountered the spectral residents of Thistledown, the enigmatic dancers in the moonlit glades, and the softly murmuring echoes of voices that seemed to speak in riddles. These nocturnal visitations were not harrowing nightmares. Instead, they were serene journeys into the cryptic realms of the soul. In these moments, fear transformed into a subtle, almost hypnotic lullaby, an anthem for those who were brave enough to confront their uncertainties. When dawn finally broke, it did so with a gentle touch of tender light diffusing across the forest floor as if it were blessing the night's revelations. The aftermath of his nocturnal odyssey left Rowan with a profound sense of clarity. He realized that the ancient journal was not a mere chronicle of past terrors, but a guide for a balanced existence, one that embraced the inevitable brush with fear as a natural and even necessary part of life. The world, in all its paradoxical splendor, had a way of soothing even the deepest of anxieties, a truth that was masked beneath layers of myth and shadow. Returning to Thistledown with the first rays of morning, Rowan carried the journal like a talisman of memento that harbored the distilled wisdom of countless souls who had journeyed before him. The villagers, once wary of the unfathomable dark and its mysteries, began to gather around him at twilight. In the communal glow of shared experience, they discovered that within the heart of every scary tale lay an invitation to relax, reflect, and ultimately find beauty in the juxtaposition of contrasting truths. The transformation of Thistledown was gradual yet unmistakable. Over time, the old stories once recited solely as spine-chilling warnings became meditative narratives that soothed hearts and mended fractured spirits. Lanterns were lit not just to banish darkness, but to accentuate its soft, mysterious outline. And instead of hiding from the chill of the night, the villagers learned to draw warmth from the shared glow of their collective courage. The journey of each soul, as shared in Rowan's newfound lore, was a quiet rebellion against despaire's defiant embrace of both light and shadow. In the months that followed, Thistledown blossomed into a sanctuary of thought and emotion, where every whispered story was a thread in the tapestry of existence. The once solitary wanderer had become a storyteller whose words were measured not by the volume of dread, but by the profound simplicity of acceptance. And as the evening mists returned day after day, carrying with them the soft rustle of leaves and the murmur of long-forgotten lullabies, the villagers came to understand that even the scariest of stories held the potential to relax the soul if only one dared to listen with a heart free of judgment. Thus, beneath the ever-watchful stars, and in the embrace of nature's quiet lullaby, Thistledown continued to be a testament to the delicate equilibrium that exists between fear and peace. The legacy of the scary stories to relax was etched into every stone, every whisper of the wind, and every life touched by the dual grace of darkness and luminescence. In the end, the beauty of the unknown was not in its terror, but in its ability to remind each traveler that within every shadow lay the seeds of rebirth, and within every moment of fear lay the promise of serenity. And so, as the last echoes of the ancient night faded into a soothing dawn, the villagers of Thistledown carried forward a legacy of mindful reflection, a journey towards understanding that the most resonant stories are those that offer not only a glimpse of our deepest anxieties, but also a path to embrace our truest selves in the tender light of a new day.